We're on the road to 1 million subscribers, and when we get there, 5 of you will win a world trip to the most incredible places in history. Catch new episodes every night at 7 p.m. UK, 8 p.m. Europe over 2 p.m. US Eastern Time. Subscribe now, because the next chapter of history could be yours.
The shadow of the samurai. The wind howls across the mountains of Japan, carrying whispers of a forgotten past. Beneath the rising sun, legends were born, men bound by honor, duty, and death itself. The samurai. To the world, they became symbols of discipline and courage. To Japan, they were guardians, killers, philosophers, poets, and martyrs. Their story is not merely one of battles and blades. It is a story of a civilization's soul. This documentary takes us deep into the hidden worlds of the samurai, the myths of their divine origins, the theology of loyalty, the psychology of discipline and death, and the modern interpretations that shape how we see warriors today. From the first clans that rose in the chaos of medieval Japan to the final days of the shogun, we uncover the history of Japan's warriors, both human and mythic. Origins of the warrior. Long before the word samurai became legend, Japan was a fractured land. The imperial court in Kyoto was fragile, struggling to control distant provinces. Local clans rose with their own militias, enforcing power by the sword. These early warriors were not yet samurai, but bushi, men of arms who defended their lords. Ancient chronicles spoke of Amaterasu, the sun goddess, gifting the imperial line divine authority. Yet in the shadow of this myth, violence was constant. The warrior class grew as protectors of land, but their loyalty was not to the emperor. They were loyal to their clan. Cross-cultural parallels exist here. Just as medieval knights of Europe arose to defend Christendom, the samurai emerged to serve their feudal lords. But while knights were bound by the church, the samurai were shaped by Shinto, Buddhism, and Confucian ethics. Rise of the samurai. By the late Heian period, 794–1185, the word samurai, those who serve, entered Japanese history. They were no longer just hired swords. They became retainers of noble lords, bound by honor. The Genpei War between the Taira and Minamoto clans, 1180–1185, gave the samurai their defining legend. Out of it rose Minamoto no Yoritomo, who established the Kamakura shogunate in 1192. This was the birth of the samurai government, a warrior aristocracy. The emperor remained in Kyoto, a divine figurehead, but real power belonged to the shogun and his warrior elite. Literature of this age, such as the Tale of the Heike, immortalized the ethos of the samurai: impermanence, sacrifice, and glory on the battlefield. The sound of the Gion Shoja bells echoes the impermanence of all things. Begins the epic, reminding warriors that death was inevitable and beautiful if embraced with honor. Theology of the sword. To understand the psychology of the samurai, one must grasp the spiritual foundation of Bushido, the way of the warrior. Influenced by Zen Buddhism, they meditated on impermanence. Death was not to be feared but accepted. A samurai's readiness to die gave him freedom to live without hesitation. Shinto reinforced purity and loyalty, while Confucian ideals emphasized duty to one's lord and family. Thus, the sword became more than a weapon. It was a sacred soul. The katana was revered, named, and passed through generations. It was said that within the curve of steel lived both life and death. Cross-cultural echoes resound. Norse berserkers believed Odin chose their death. Christian knights fought for eternal salvation, and samurai accepted that to serve was to surrender the self. The age of war and unity. The Sengoku period, 1467–1600, the Warring States era, was Japan's darkest storm. Daimyo warlords clashed, alliances broke, castles burned. It was an age of chaos and opportunity, where samurai lived and died in endless campaigns. Here, legends were forged. Oda Nobunaga, ruthless innovator. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the peasant who rose to unify Japan. And Tokugawa Ieyasu, patient strategist who established a dynasty that would rule for 250 years. Psychologically, the samurai became creatures of paradox, ruthless killers bound by codes of honor, poets who wrote death haiku before battle, men who valued both art and blood. Rituals of death. Perhaps no element of samurai culture fascinates outsiders more than seppuku, ritual suicide. To Western eyes, it was brutal and senseless. To the samurai, it was the highest form of honor. Death by one's own blade was not defeat, it was purification, a reclaiming of dignity. Here, theology and psychology intertwine. The act of seppuku was rooted in Buddhist impermanence, Confucian loyalty, and Shinto purity. By opening the belly, the seat of the spirit, the samurai proved absolute sincerity. In literature, countless tales glorify the act, none more famous than the Chushingura, the 47 ronin who avenged their master and chose death with honor. Fall of the samurai. The 19th century brought foreign ships and foreign guns. Commodore Perry's black ships forced Japan open. The shogunate faltered. Samurai clashed between tradition and modernity. The Meiji Restoration, 1868, abolished the samurai class. Swords were banned, stipends ended, and warriors became relics. Yet their spirit endured. The Satsuma Rebellion of 1877, led by Saigo Takamori, the last samurai, was crushed, but it sealed their legend forever. The myth of the samurai. Even after their fall, the samurai lived on in myth. The West romanticized them as noble knights of the East. Japan remembered them as symbols of honor and national spirit. In modern times, they appear in films, anime, literature, and psychology. Samurai values, discipline, loyalty, sacrifice are adapted in business, sports, and even military ethics worldwide. Cross-cultural parallels stretch further. Samurai are seen as the mirror of the knight, the echo of the Spartan, the shadow of the Jedi in science fiction. Women of the samurai. While the image of the samurai is often male, history reveals the silent power of women warriors, onabugeisha. These were noble women trained in the art of war, wielding the naginata, a long polearm perfect for both defense and offense. Figures such as Tomoe Gozen, a warrior of the late Heian period, shattered the myth of a male-only warrior class. Chronicles describe her riding into battle, striking fear into men, and carving her name into legend. Yet women's power was not only martial. They preserved lineages, upheld household honor, and ensured the continuity of clan traditions. The mythology of the samurai would be incomplete without the strength of the women who stood beside or in front of them. Samurai psychology, the discipline of death. What does it mean to live as if death has already been embraced? Samurai psychology was rooted in the elimination of fear. From childhood, warriors were trained not only in swordsmanship, but also in emotional detachment. Zen Buddhism taught stillness amid chaos. Bushido demanded loyalty beyond reason. Together, they created a mental architecture where hesitation was weakness and acceptance of death was liberation. Modern psychology finds parallels in Stoicism, the philosophy of the Roman Empire, and in the warrior ethos of Native American tribes. Across cultures, true warriors transcended survival. They sought meaning in mortality, samurai in literature and art. The legacy of the samurai endures through ink and brush. The epic tale of the Heike immortalized their valor and tragedy. Zen poetry written before death became testaments to impermanence. Haiku of falling blossoms, fading moons, and fleeting life. In art, woodblock prints captured the elegance of armored warriors, poised like gods of war. Playwrights turned their sacrifices into kabuki theater. Much like Homer preserved the Greeks and Shakespeare immortalized kings, Japan's storytellers turned samurai into eternal archetypes: warrior, poet, martyr. Samurai and the spirit of Bushido. The warrior's way, Bushido, became more than a code. It was a theology of living, loyalty to one's lord, courage in the face of death, compassion toward the weak, honor above all. But Bushido was not static. In war, it justified ruthlessness. In peace, it evolved into a philosophy of moral discipline. By the Edo period, Samurai, who never drew their swords, still embodied Bushido in scholarship, governance, and ritual. In modern Japan, Bushido influenced business ethics, sportsmanship, and even military propaganda in the 20th century. Like all great codes of honor, Spartan discipline, chivalry of knights, Native American warrior traditions, its truth lies in its contradictions. Global influence, the samurai, in the world's imagination. From Hollywood to anime, from Kurosawa's films to Star Wars Jedi, the shadow of the samurai stretches across the globe. The Jedi Code echoes Bushido. Darth Vader's armor recalls the Kabuto helmet. Western knights are endlessly compared to samurai, their codes mirrored in cultural memory. Samurai philosophy has even influenced martial arts in Brazil, leadership in Europe, and corporate culture in America. What began in Japan, valleys, became a universal metaphor. The disciplined warrior who conquers self before conquering the world. The immortal samurai. Though the samurai class was abolished, their ghost walks beside us. Every time a katana is forged, every time a film dramatizes their sacrifice, every time a leader invokes honor before profit, the samurai rise again. Theologians interpret them as symbols of devotion. Psychologists see archetypes of death acceptance. Artists portray them as mythic heroes. To Japan, they remain cultural ancestors. To the world, they are reminders of the eternal warrior spirit. Like the cherry blossom that blooms in radiant beauty before falling, the samurai lived brilliantly and died young, but their memory never withers. They are not gone. They are eternal. The eternal warrior. The story of the samurai is not simply Japan's story, it is humanity's story. It reveals how societies turn violence into virtue, how men embrace death to find meaning, and how legends outlive those who lived them. The samurai are gone, yet their shadow lingers. In every sword raised in film, in every vow of loyalty sworn, in every poem written on the edge of death, we hear their echo. They are the eternal warriors.
You've just unlocked another chapter of sacred truth, and your journey with God's wisdom continues. Return tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, when a fresh revelation may brighten your path and strengthen your faith. Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell so you never miss a blessing-laden episode. Share this scroll of knowledge with family and friends, for when truth is shared, God's mercy envelops us, guiding and blessing in every circumstance. Your curiosity is our compass. Tell us in the comments which mystery you'd like to explore next, and together we'll unveil it by His grace. Until next time, stay faithful, stay watchful. May God's mercy and blessings be upon you always.